Welcome to the Shakeout Podcast. I'm your host, John Gay. This week on the show, I'm joined by Canadian running staff writers Cameron Ormond and Marley Dickinson for a special edition of The Rundown, your destination for all the top stories from the world of running. With spring now upon us and the World Indoor Championships coming to a close this past weekend in Nanjing, we sit down to recap what has been an exhilarating winter on the roads and the track, including Canadian and world records and some of the most competitive university championships we've seen in years. No sooner has the indoor season come to a close, though, than we're diving headfirst into spring track. So make sure to stick around as we get you up to speed on all the exciting storylines to look forward to in the jam-packed months ahead. With so many standout performances to talk about, there's no time to waste, so let's get into it. Marley, Cami, welcome back on the show.
Thanks, John. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I've really been looking forward to this. I feel like every week that's gone by with this episode in mind, we've just been adding fuel to the fire with all of these storylines, and I think it really came to a head with the World Indoor Championships this past weekend, but we should kick things off a little bit further back down the road because there's a lot of indoor action and road action over the course of the winter to get through building up to those World Indoor Championships. Cami, I'll throw it to you first. What were some of the highlights from the indoor season for you?
Yeah, so I followed the U Sports season pretty closely. I'm not too far removed from it myself, so it was nice to kind of be able to stay in touch with it. I followed NCAAs closely as well, and I think one thing that stood out for me there is really seeing how the depth of the competition has changed in the past 2 years. I know there's been comparison posts comparing the times from 10 years ago to now, and it's unreal to see the level and the caliber of these athletes now compared to then.
Yeah, totally. I think for anybody that was in the college system a decade ago or even 5 years ago, looking at those times being run now just to qualify for U Sports or for the NCAA championships is a little bit sobering, a little bit scary. I think it almost makes you think, oh man, would I be running that quick now if I was still in college? Marley, what did you think? Were there some particular college highlights that jumped out at you?
Yeah, I think in particular it's a lot of the middle distance and distance events. You know, you're seeing times that are run by people that are in the making finals and of these collegiate championships that would kind of get you into qualify for potential Olympics or World Championships. That's how high the standard has gotten in the NCAA, which is incredibly impressive. And a personal highlight of mine is seeing how many Canadians were competing at the NCAA Championships and looking at the next generation of Canadian athletics as we inch towards LA 2028. Games, a lot of Canadians will be able to watch in a proper time zone and cheer on our athletes from close by.
Yeah, super exciting to just see the depth coming through the Canadian system, both at the talent development level in high school and then onwards through the collegiate levels, both in this country and south of the border. We have a lot to look forward to in the coming years. I think it's a real sign that Canada is taking off across the board, and we're going to touch on some of those international results from Canadians later in the show. But that seems like a great opportunity to dive into a little bit of the highlights from the university championships, both U Sports and NCAAs. Cami, you were in person in Windsor at the U Sport Championships just a couple of weeks ago, covering all the action there. What were some of the standout performances from that weekend for you?
Yeah, so again, there were incredible performances across the board, but I would say there were 4 standouts, not just at the championships themselves, but throughout the season. First of all, Max Davies, that's a no-brainer. He's University of Guelph athlete, has been putting his name out there, really just climbing up in the Canadian rankings and making a statement at most championships that he runs. And at U Sports last year, he ran 2 U Sports records in the 1K and the 1500. And this year he came back, broke one of those records again, and again took 2 golds. And he became the first person to win 3 consecutive men's 1500 meter U Sports titles. And he still has another year, so he'll be coming back next year, maybe making it 4. But it's truly incredible to see him running that well. Another Guelph athlete was Diana Proctor, and she's just a rookie, but she won U Sports Rookie of the Year, took home the individual women's 300 meter title, which is unreal. And Yeah, she also holds a silver medal from the U20 World Championships in the 400. She has quite a resume now, and she's just starting off. So it's really, yeah, crazy to see what she's doing so early on in her university career. And then diving into other schools, there was Vivian Ogre, and she's from Western, and she was just taking off in the 60 meter this year. She ran, oh my gosh, a 7:23, which is crazy. She's I think it was the second fastest this year to Audrey LeDuc. And to me, it's still a mystery. And me and Marley were trying to figure this out, but why she didn't make the world's team this year for indoor worlds. It was within the qualification period, so it's very interesting that she didn't go, to me at least, and it would have been really exciting to see her go. But speaking of people who did go, there is University of Calgary's Sienna McDonald, and she made it for the 60-meter hurdles after taking 2 U Sports records at the championships in the 60-meter hurdles and the long jump, and she did that within 10 minutes of each other, which is crazy. So
Yeah, I was hoping we would touch on Sienna because she was essentially warming up for one event and then jumping between the long jump runway and the start line, and came away clutch with both, made a huge name for herself, and then earned a spot on the world team for just a couple weeks later. So some really impressive performances from U Sports. Always so good to see the Canadian system producing talent at home, especially in a case like Sienna McDonald being able to run so well at home, attending a Canadian university, and then leverage that into a debut on the highest of stages, a world championship, within the same season is, I think, just so good for the sport, for the trajectory of U Sports as a league, and for the promotion of Canadian talent, and makes a strong case for that homegrown approach.
I'll flip this question to the both of you because I've never been on any national teams, but you both were developed in sort of the Canadian U Sports environment, and have represented Canada on the international stage. How helpful was that international experience for you? Like in Sienna's case, this is her first, world championships, and she's coming from absolutely dominating the Canadian U Sports team. But now, for her moving forward, how essential or important is that experience that she just had in China?
I think it's so critical. For me, running at an international level, especially the opportunities I was lucky enough to have while I was still competing collegiately, really helped to shift my perspective. And I think a lot of athletes, certainly the best athletes, rise to whatever stage they're being set to compete on. And if that's the Canada West Championships, you'll rise to that occasion. If that's the U Sports Championships, you'll maybe level up another level. But in the case of someone like Sienna, you just continue to rise, and you see those best athletes elevate their performances to whatever stage they're being called upon. And obviously that has huge ramifications for when you do I don't want to say step backwards down to the collegiate level, but when you return from something like a world championship, where you go from being a big fish in a small pond to being a small fish in a very, very big pond, the return back to your normalcy, I think, brings with it this just tremendously expanded scope where you don't have to treat every race quite as seriously. It doesn't feel as life or death. You realize, oh, the U Sports Championships, yeah, it's a big deal, but I know that I've got this. I've been able to perform at an even higher level than this. And you got a sense of confidence. I think there's this kind of unspoken swagger that comes with it. It's tough to put a finger on what it is exactly, but the more that you can compete and be pushed by athletes who are head and shoulders better than you, the more that drags you up. And we see that even at the U Sports Championships, the more international athletes return and compete at the Canadian level, the more the athletes that they're competing against here in Canada are dragged to a higher level. And so there is this reciprocity where the best athletes go and compete abroad, they come back, and then they've got a target on their back when they come home. And that just brings all of the other athletes to a higher level domestically. It's that analogy of all the ships in the harbor rising on the same tide.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a very essential experience. I was only on junior teams back in the day now, but it's rewarding. It's nice to be able to get that validation that you've worked hard and you put in effort and you're making at least progress and achieving these small steps or big steps towards your big goals. And you get to have like it's a fun experience. There's a swagger aspect to it. I agree. And like you get the full kit, like, and you get the jackets, the outfit, and it's really cool. It feels elite and it makes you kind of realize that this could be your reality and you could be, regular competing in that Canada uniform. Like it doesn't have to be this big dream anymore. You are at that level and you deserve to be there, and it does give you confidence, and confidence is really, really important. And yeah, it does make the meets that used to be really big feels less intimidating, and it makes you have that confidence that you own this place. And one thing about track, and just I guess athletics in general, it's the environment and the community is just really tight knit. And just being able to, if you go on a team and you are now teammates with people who usually are your competitors, it's very fun to be able to be friends with your competitors. And I think being able to be on the same team as them and have that experience and just get to know people in the sport and in the environment, it's awesome. And it's something that as you get older, you have less chances to do. You don't have as many training camps with random people and not put into, new environments with different people who you've never met before. But being able to still do that as you get older, it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that idea of becoming teammates with your competitors was something that I really valued, because using that same analogy of being a big fish in a small pond, you start to know all the other big fish crowding out your pond, and there is that kind of competitiveness domestically, and then you go and face the world, and you're facing it together, and you're facing it representing the country as a whole. And from that point onwards, I think a lot of the people that I had previously viewed as competitors started to feel a lot more like teammates and as peers, that we were pushing each other to be better. And that goes all the way down the depth chart when you come back to the domestic level of competition. If everybody is pushing one another, it's all in the interest of making sure that we send the best possible teams to those World Indoor Championships, to World Cross Country Championships, to all of the international events that Canada competes in. And obviously that is a very good thing for the sport. It's a great thing for the sport in our country. It's a great thing for the sport internationally when each country is really putting its best foot forward. Now, in addition to some of those U Sports athletes that were competing at the World Indoor Championships, they were joined by some other collegiate standouts. We'll jump into recapping who those were, but first let's just talk a little bit about the Canadian dominance at the NCAA Championships. Just coming up on 2 weeks since those wrapped up in Virginia Beach, and at least in my recollection, I cannot recall a time when there were as many dominant Canadian performances as we had just 2 weeks ago down at NCAA's at the Division I Championships. Crazy times.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there, John. I can't recall the last time we had 3 Canadians come away with NCAA titles and 5 Canadians reach the podium.
Yeah.
It was an absolute unreal weekend for the red and white in Virginia Beach. Some of my favorite standout performances was Kaylee McCabe, who is back for her final season with West Virginia University. I know she's a Vancouver athlete, and it's just seeing how much work she puts in and having that breakthrough moment, absolutely surreal in the women's 3,000 meter. She just broke away from the rest of the field and kind of held on in that final 200 meters. It was an incredible moment. You could just see the raw emotion on her face, and to see other breakout performances like Will Floyd in the men's 400 meters, following the footsteps of his former teammate Christopher Morales-Williams, who just won last year and represented Canada in Paris. It's like having performances like that really like get you excited about the next generation of Canadian track and field. Like I get so excited every time I think about like the Canadian 4x4 team possibly like having a performance or having a team there in LA. And having like we touched on it before, being able to win, collegiate titles really boosts that confidence and awareness as well. It brings in, potential sponsorship money or opportunities that you might have not had before. So I think, yeah, like having these athletes all perform well at a high level in NCAA is fantastic. But even beyond, Floyd and McCabe and there was so many others great performances like Savannah Sutherland, who ran a Canadian record in the women's 400 meters, and Foster Malik. Like, what a season that guy had, you know? Again, a guy who was racing in his final year at Boston University, had several breakthrough performances in the men's mile. I think lowered his PB to what, like 352, 353?
Yeah.
And then, hopped on a plane to join his first national team in Nanjing a few days later. So,
Yeah, pretty crazy 7-day period for him.
Yeah, crazy. He must be just catching up on sleep now. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I think it all touches back to that idea that we were talking about of seeing athletes who are given the opportunity to perform internationally, then being able to come back to the collegiate level and totally own it. Certainly in the case of Kaylee and Savannah, both Olympians last year in Paris, both, I think, accustomed to those big high pressure moments. They've been on the highest of stages, and then they're able to come back and execute at the NCAA level and put on these dominant performances. As a fellow steeplechaser like Kaylee, there's always such satisfaction in seeing someone step down to a flat distance, as we like to call it, and come away with a big win. Shout out to Kaylee. Thank you for raising the collective image of steeplechasers as more than just one-trick ponies in the eyes of the rest of the track world. And we even saw it with Savannah as well, a Canadian record in the flat four. She's a four hurdler by trade in the outdoor season. So some really great performances. And I think, once again, testament to being able to compete internationally, come back and use the skills that you've gained on the world stage to just smash the competition at the national level, at the collegiate level. Someone who we're still waiting, and he's super young, so he's got plenty of road ahead of him to accomplish all of this, but someone who is still kind of on that upward trajectory towards those big world international competitions. Maddie Erickson came in as the 15th seed to the 800 meters at the NCAA championships, representing Oregon. Nelson boy out of British Columbia. For those who haven't been to Nelson, there's not even a track within 200 kilometers of where this kid grew up, and squeaks his way into NCAAs, wins his semifinal, and then goes on to win the whole darn thing in the final, leading a slew of Canadians through that race. Just incredible.
Yeah. He's the strength Maddie Erickson runs with is I love watching this kid. Once he takes the front, he doesn't let anyone pass him. He's a bigger figure, loves to run in like the inside lane, and just like once he has the lead, he just doesn't want to give it up. And you can see that's kind of the way he races. And I think he has a really bright future in the world of 800 meter running. A lot of talent there. And even if you look at Abdullahi Hassan, who came second to Erickson in the race, a super, super talented Canadian 800 meter runner from Toronto, represented Canada at the World Outdoor Championships in Budapest in 2023. Both guys, I think, have a really, really bright future. And I think the strength of Canadian 800 meter running right now is, I don't know, I can't think of an event that is stronger, actually, than men's 800 meter running, which is crazy.
Oh, it's remarkable. 4 guys in the NCAA final. That's 50% of the field. 2 of the 3 podium finishers. Unbelievable. We'll give a shout out as well to Olivia Demule and Justin O'Toole, 2 other Canadians in that final. Like you say, I can't think of another time when the 800 has been as strong as it has been in Canada. I mean, we can now boast an NCAA champion. Last year, Marco Arop, world indoor champion, Paris silver medalist. The event is getting deeper and deeper across the world, and Canada seems to be right there at the forefront leading the charge. So huge things ahead.
If there's an athlete you think out of the 3 NCAA champions, which one you think is going to have the kind of most potential out of the 3 as they all emerge towards their professional careers?
Yeah, great question. Cami, do you want to dive in?
Oh, God.
Hot water here.
I know. I mean, I think Kaylee McCabe has just been on this already amazing trajectory, gone through her ups and downs, and she was persistent throughout. Like, she obviously was chasing an NCAA title. This is her last year. She wanted to get one, and I think that she always had it kind of on her radar. It was always a possibility, whether it was for cross country or track in other years. And I think that she's still so young. She obviously has that drive and that passion for running. And you could see, yeah, what you said before. It was all captured in that finishing photo of her crossing the line. I don't think I've ever seen so much like raw emotion in someone's face when they were coming across a line. It's very inspiring. She has a big career ahead of her. Um, and I have lots of faith in her as an athlete. So my
Yeah,
bets are on her.
I totally agree. I think interesting you mentioned that push for a national title. She's been in the collegiate system now for several years. Obviously has been a standout, third at NCAA cross, multiple podium appearances in the steeplechase. I think we all kind of thought that championship was going to come in the steeple, but the way that she was able to rise to the occasion, this was her final season of eligibility. There is no steeple this spring for her to claim that NCAA title in, so it really was now or never. And I think that in other sports, people talk about the clutch gene, and I think for her to come away with a national title when all chips are on the table, this is a now or never moment in an event that you could argue isn't her best event. I mean, she's an Olympian in the steeplechase, so the flat
Mm.
3K is not her primary event, but just that ability to clutch up when it really matters is, I think, the mark of long-term success. And it's been so cool to follow her collegiate career. I know all of Canada is frothing to see what she can accomplish as a full-time pro, looking ahead to what should be a really exciting first year on the pro circuit. On that note, we've got a whole lot of pro racing coming up, but we did have the granddaddy of all indoor events to cap off the indoor season. It was the World Championships in Nanjing just a couple of days ago. Pretty strong Canadian contingent, a bit of a mixed bag with the performances, but there was one glimmering golden moment for sure that I think is a really appropriate place for us to start, and that is Sarah Mitton's defense of her world indoor title. Another dominant performance. She seems to just absolutely own the indoor shot circle.
Yeah, it's awesome to see her be able to get that redemption after Paris. And obviously she had a ton of pressure coming in as the reigning champion. And she would have won. It's so incredible because she would have won with any of her top three throws. Like that's crazy. And she won by, I think it was 41 centimeters or
Yeah.
something nuts like that. And it's just so crazy to see her dominance. And obviously seeing that, you can understand how frustrating Paris would have been, and just knowing that like she is the best, and to not be able to have the best day on such a big stage with all these expectations. It's got to be really, really tough to bounce back from that, and yet she did it. And yeah, it's to me, I think the top three throws like it was her third furthest throw ever that she won with. But again, any of her top three throws would
Yeah.
have dominated the field. So
I think it's been so exciting just to see the way that she's dragged women's shot put into the collective mainstream of Canadian track and field fandom. Just the way that she performs, the energy, the explosiveness of her style, uh, the clutchness, particularly these last two indoor seasons, just knowing that she'll step up and compete at those highest levels has made such a compelling story. And every time she jumps in the ring, it makes me a bigger fan of the event. And I think the future is strong. We've already kind of established ourselves as a throwing nation, and we just continue to bolster that reputation. That said, more than just throwing at the World Indoor Championships, I think for all of us being distance nerds, a ton to unpack on the middle distance side of things. Marley, what were some of the highlights for you from the oval events?
It's hard not to look past Jakob Ingebrigtsen's double. Pretty crazy schedule with World Indoors only being a 3-day event, and for him to go out on day one. I mean, no one questioned him not qualifying for the men's 1500-meter final on day one, but to do that, then follow up on day two with winning gold in the 3000 in what wasn't an easy 3000 meters. I mean, Rio Iragawi from Ethiopia, who is on his own is a fantastic runner, over 5K and 10K on the track, pushed Jakob Ingebrigtsen and challenged him, making it sort of a bit more of an honest race later in the final few laps.
Yeah.
So it didn't come easy to him, and then for him to follow it up in less than 24 hours and win a 1500-meter title and his first one ever indoors is pretty impressive. I mean, I think Ingebrigtsen is pretty much, and I would die on this take that he's pretty much unbeatable in a tactical race. That people let him take the lead in.
Interesting.
Because I mean, in the races that we've seen him lose, it's been faster, honest races where someone has kind of outpushed him in the final 300 or 400 meters.
After he's done all the work to get them that far into the race, yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, he's like his tactic, and I've watched him race a lot of times. Is just take the back, let other people do the work, and when no one's willing to kind of take the pace, he says, "Okay, my turn to dial it up." He'll insert little increases of pace every sort of 100 or 200 meters, and which it just stretches out the field entirely, which we saw in the 1500-meter final, which he won pretty much handily.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about him being dominant in those tactical races. I think when most people think tactical, they think back to the total jog fest sit and kicks. His is a little bit of a different style. It almost reminds me of like a ramp test or a VO2 max test on a treadmill where you're just almost imperceptibly increasing the pace as you go on, and he's just so strong in that last 800 meters that even if the pace wasn't too hot to begin with, once he gets cooking, every meter is faster than the last one, it seems like, to the point where guys just start flying out the back. They just can't hang with that level of strength. And that's been really cool to see.
His running style is very similar to one of my favorites is Mo Farah. Mo Farah is famous. I mean, Mo Farah was definitely fast, and obviously, his Olympic resume shows his accomplishments and how talented he was. His style of racing was just to dial it up. Like every race, if I'm running a 5,000 meter, I'm gonna dial up 64, 63, 62, 61, and just break it down every single lap and just tire these guys out. That was the way Farah raced. I mean, I think Jakob does it more effortlessly, where Farah showed a little bit more of a pain face while he was doing it. It's the style of racing that people have done for 5,000 meters. I mean, we saw Haile Gebrselassie kind of race that way. Farah raced that way. It's been a 5,000 meter style of racing for so long, but I think he's brought that style of racing down to the 3K and 1,500 meters, where being able to dial it up in a very fast and quick motion and make the first half of the race as easy as possible and avoid any sort of mix-ups. Mm-hmm. I think that's the way that makes him unbeatable. I mean, we saw it in Paris where, Kerr kind of pushed the pace at the get-go, or Timothy Chariot has pushed the pace in the get-go before, and guys have kind of gone with him. And I think that's the only style to kind of beat Ingebrigtsen, is when it's a faster race where he's working outside of his comfort zone.
Yeah, and we're starting to see that across other events. People are taking note that, okay, if I am the strongest person in the field, it's in my best interest to just shut the door on people by running the legs off them. And I think a perfect example of that, the archetypal example from these past championships, certainly is Gudaf Sage in the women's 1500. Just an utterly dominant performance. 3:54.86, which happens to be a championship record. The time alone, super impressive, but the margin of victory, something like 3+ seconds over all of these other area records, national records. She just utterly blitzed the field, ran away with it, and that takes guts, but it clearly worked out for her. Are we starting to see the dawn of the same Jakob Ingebrigtsen effect on the women's side of middle distance running, do you think?
I'd have no idea, because that was an insane race to watch, and maybe you could see it more often, but yeah, it's so gutsy, and it's just crazy that someone can do that and not die off or not get nervous by people, trying to hold on to them for that long. Like, I know, I'm not sure when the second person dropped off, but it was a 2-man race for a good chunk of that. I feel like that's something I would have done when I was like 15 running, and I had no sense of tactics and just was like, okay, I'm just going to go run, which is typically what I think people who don't really have serious training do. But to be able to have that much confidence in your training and to know that whether it's like physical and mental training both, because that takes a very strong mind to be able to push through that. Yeah, I think that it's unreal. And I would love to see more honest races like that. There have been a lot of, talks about tactical racing and yeah, I think that seeing honest races would be nice to see the level that people can step up to if it's not tactical, and what times will be accomplished if it's not tactical and not just winning for a gold medal, but winning for the time itself.
Right. Yeah.
This might be a bad take, but I'm unsure why more runners don't take that strategy. I mean, I guess like in a championship event where there's rounds, there's a lot more risk to that because like if you're running in the heats, then you got to run in a semi or a final, just days later. But I feel like Cami kind of noted there, it's if you trust your training and know you're in shape, like let's say if you're in Segai's case, if you're in 355 shape, why not just go out there and run 355? If you think you're in better shape than everyone else, stick to your pace, run your own race. Not to make a little poem there, but yeah, I'm unsure why more athletes don't take that approach. I mean, again, it is a hard thing to do. Again, if it's a high risk move, and if it doesn't work out in your way, you just look like an amateur out there. But it does seem, I mean, especially to in events where there isn't many rounds, like, I mean, we can even use the steeplechase or a 5,000 meter when, there is only one or two races. Why, if you're in good shape, why not just try your best to kind of make it that kind of race, right?
Yeah.
Didn't we see this in the women's 5K at the Olympics? Was it that race? Was it Nozomi Tanaka? Was it her who took it out hard and died?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so.
a classic Japanese middle distance strategy. The die on your sword, make it hard on everyone in the field, including yourself, and hope that it sticks. So it
Yeah,
does come with its risks.
I do think that I think it is more common than we think, but I think it's just because when it works out, that's only when it gets the reward and recognition, but people bonk most of the time when they do it, and then they're kind of seen as silly for even trying out that tactic, or they blew it, or you know. So I see why it doesn't happen more often, and especially in championship races, you do want to play it safe more usually than risk it because you want that gold medal, you want that Olympic title, and to not play it safe when you have the option to, and then end up blowing it, you would just look back and it could go both ways. Yeah, you could look back and hate yourself for being that reckless, but you could also look back and say, why didn't I push harder? Why didn't I give it my all? So yeah, I think it's more common than we think.
A lot of athletes who finish a championship and wish maybe that they had that glorious burn up instead of a mediocre, oh, I probably had more in that last lap. It is such a fine line, right? You go out, die on your sword, become infamous for running like a hothead, but at least there's some honor in knowing that you got absolutely everything out of yourself? Or do you play it safe and maybe it comes out that you nailed the splits and you nailed your timing, but you could just as easily play it really safe and never put yourself in competition. And I think from my personal experience, I've been more disappointed in the races where I never gave myself the opportunity to have a great day and ended up having a just okay day where I finished feeling like I could have given more than the days where the end result was terrible, but I knew that I got absolutely everything out of myself by just going to the well and might end up in a horrific blow up midway through, but at that point you at least can know that you made it hard, hopefully, on some of the other people in the field and dragged them out with you. On that note, as we're talking about this run and gun from the front style, it seems like a great segue into talking about what I think is probably the highlight of the last 3 months in Canadian athletics. It's not every day that we get to call attention to a new world record that belongs to a Canadian, but that's exactly what Evan Dunfee did this past weekend, 35K race walk world record, and very much that run and gun, snatch and grab from the start race style. He was separated from the group pretty much from the moment the gun went off and didn't look back. Just a utterly dominant performance. And it's one thing to do it over 1,500 meters on an indoor track, a whole nother thing to do it over 35 kilometers.
I don't think I will ever understand like the mental toughness and the resilience you have to be able to just set out on a 35-kilometer walk and by yourself and just tackle, your goal, your that time and absolutely demolish everybody. But yeah, I like kudos to him. I think it's unreal, and I don't think people recognize how crazy this sport actually is.
Yeah, I mean, for some perspective, 2:21:40 for 35K. Cami, you did some math. Share with us, what is that per kilometer? What is that as a 5K split for those of us who maybe are still in the running a 5K race mentality?
Yeah, so that is 4 minutes and 3 seconds per kilometer. And that's typically what people would be tackling if they're aiming for a 20-minute 5K, so yeah, if you are aiming for a 20-minute 5K, there is a race walker who is quite a lot faster than you.
He's doing it 7 times over.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable. And again, the gutsiness to take it from the gun. The thing with race walk is it's 1 kilometer laps, so 35 laps. Every 1,000 meters, you're being reminded of just how much further you have to go. And he just totally grabbed it by the horns and squeezed the life out of that world record.
It's hard to understand how, like, because like if you go out on like a 35K long run at 4-minute pace, like it's gonna be tough. Like it's gonna be so
my gosh.
hard. That's so hard.
Yeah.
And like now you think of somebody like walking it in like without taking their heels off the ground or their foot off the ground. That's absolutely insane. I mean, Evan Dunfee deserves all the respect. Race walking is so hard. I mean, if you haven't tried it, go down to your local track, try to walk 400 meters as fast as you can. You'll be gassed. It is an insane event. Kudos to Evan Dunfee. He's one of the hardest working athletes out there. And to have this world record might be one of the most impressive achievements of his career so far. And that says a lot, knowing that he's, been top 6 at 3 Olympic Games.
Yeah, multiple time world medalist.
Yeah, he continues to get better. It's really, really cool to see. And I don't know if you saw his tweet after the race. He said, I didn't know that I had to pay to get a world record.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Fill our listeners in on what that tweet entails.
So,
because this will come as a shock to many, I think.
Yeah, so when you set a world record, you have to get your shoes that you ran in. You have to send them into World Athletics to get them approved or ratified, I guess, using the gear in order to get your record ratified. Sorry. So Evan had to pay $300 in order to submit his world record for it to become a world record, which is pretty crazy.
I did not know that.
Yeah, imagine that. So if any shoe sponsors are listening out there, throw a bone to our world record holder, Evan Dunfee. He's done so much for the sport. He's an incredible ambassador for our country, for the sport of athletics as a whole. For anybody who has met him, they'll know there's no bigger fan of the sport, generally speaking, not just race walk, not even just endurance events, but every event within the umbrella of athletics. Evan knows every detail. He is the consummate fan and supporter of his Canadian teammates. He's been a captain multiple times over at the world level representing Team Canada. Just such an incredible ambassador. I think we're all so happy to see this big breakthrough. And like you say, Marley, it's been a long time coming. He's already got such a resume on the international stage, but he identified for years as a 50K race walker. For him, and this sounds kind of crazy to even say, the 20K and even the 35K seemed too short. And yet, when World Athletics made the decision to remove the 50K, he has totally risen to the occasion. He's changed his training style. He's doubled down on these shorter distances. And I don't think he would have ever imagined a few years ago that when he did get that eventual world record, it was going to come in an event that even 4 or 5 years ago he thought was too short for his level of speed. But here we are. Congratulations to Evan on an incredible world record. Hopefully it's the start of big things for Canadian track and field as we look ahead to the outdoor season. No better way to kick off outdoors than world records.
I just want to touch on one more thing on the Dunfee situation.
Yeah.
As a marathoner, I am absolutely terrified as now race walking, World Athletics is using the half marathon and full marathon distances. So I feel like at future race walking world championships and at world championships events, when they do the half marathon walk and the full marathon walk, I think Evan Dunfee's going to put a lot of marathoners' times to shame, and he'll shock a few people. When he runs like a 2:45 marathon per se walking.
Yeah, there will definitely be some scalps to take. On that note of marathoning, we are getting very close to the spring majors. They're coming up pretty soon. London and Boston later next month in April. Marley, you're going to be not just on hand at Boston, but you're prepping for it yourself, gearing up in your training. How's that going?
Yeah, it was going well until it wasn't. I am currently trying to get over a calf injury. I had a little bit of a scare a few weeks ago during one of my sort of peak weeks during one of the harder sessions, and I've had to take some time off since and have been trying to get back out there. I think we're close, but obviously time is ticking. On April 21st, Patriots Day, for the Boston Marathon.
Have you been hitting the pool, Marley?
I have been, yes. So the funny thing is, Cami's been giving a few pool workouts to me.
Hey.
I'm not the best swimmer. I have been looking and watching YouTube videos, trying to get any advice I can. I bought a swim cap last week, so I'm all in on the cross training. But I don't know. I find it so tough to get the same amount of effort you would get on a training run, like in the pool or on the bike.
I'm right there with you.
It's easier?
No, I find it harder to get what you're doing outside, like on a run, like in the pool or on the bike. Like in the pool, I'm able to get my heart rate up, but I can't go for that long. Like after like 10 or 15 minutes, I'm gassed.
It's also boring.
So boring. Staring at a black line.
I don't get it.
Worse than running along the waterfront.
It's why I can't pool run, because I think then I'm just like staring into space, and at least when I'm like lane swimming, I have like just a lot going on. I just think it's harder, it's more engaging, but like pool running
is just one step removed from controlled drowning, in my opinion.
But most lifeguards think you are drowning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fortunately for the rest of Canada, and unfortunately for Marley, all of our hopes don't rest solely on your shoulders for Boston. There is some good Canadian representation in the elite field. Just one Canadian, actually. Rory Linkletter is part of that elite field. I have a little bit of inside information training with him most days, and I can attest that he is very, very fit. So I think that we will be very well represented at Boston on the elite side of things. Obviously, so many of our listeners themselves gearing up for that race. Also, the London Marathon the following weekend. Super deep fields. We get to see a showdown between Eliud Kipchoge and Kenenisa Bekele. Once again, kind of the clash of titans. We'll see whether they're both well and truly past their prime or not. But I think world record watch for that as well, with newly minted half marathon world record holder Jacob Kiplimo making his marathon debut. What are we thinking? Over under 2 hours? Do you think he can pull it off in his debut?
I think he runs something maybe 2:01 low. I don't know. Like going sub 2 in your debut, there's no way. There's no way. I think London's a fast course, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it's as fast as a place like Valencia or Berlin. I mean, Kiptum did run well there. But I don't know. I think definitely. Well, what he running for the half a few weeks ago is like what, 56:45?
Yeah, anything with a 56 in front of it is just mind-boggling to me. I don't think I'll ever fully wrap my head around it. For those listening, 56:45 for the half marathon. He had a 5K split under 13 minutes in the middle of that race. He actually broke the 15K and 10K world road records en route as well. So when you put it in that context, if this guy's running under 57 minutes for a half, let's say he slows it down by a full 3 minutes through halfway at London, he's still on 2-hour pace. It's almost incomprehensible to me that he could be running that fast and have that much room to work with. So we'll see. The marathon is a cruel mistress, and that second half, from all I've understood, there is really no way to prepare for it other than by going out and doing your first one. So we will be watching with great interest to see if Kiplimo can get it done and lower the official world record under that 2-hour barrier.
Speaking of first one, do you know when your first one's going to be yet, John, or you're still planning?
Yeah, it's I can neither confirm nor deny the date for my first marathon. Hopefully sometime in the year 2025, but I can't get into any more details than that right now. I've got some other shorter races coming up this weekend. I'll be pacing the 10,000, the 10, capital T, in San Juan Capistrano, California. That's going to be a loaded field. I'm actually only pacing the B heat, and even that's being slated for 27:50. So tons of fast marks going to be likely to come down in the A heats there. It always is kind of the kickoff to the real outdoor track and field season. And then from there, we just get right into rolling through with the college outdoor season. The Diamond League kicks off in early May with the 2 Chinese stops. So once it starts, it keeps coming thick and fast for the next several months as we gear up for the World Championships back in Tokyo this September.
Yeah, it should be a really exciting couple months for sure.
Yeah, so much to look forward to. Guys, it's been a pleasure chatting with you about this. Thanks for bringing your expertise to the topics, and we will have to do this again because there's going to be a lot of storylines for us to chase and to cover as we walk through this outdoor season that is going to culminate, as we mentioned, late September in Tokyo. So a little bit later of a season, which for track fans like us means even more time to enjoy the best sport in the world.
Sounds good.
Thanks again to Cami and Marley for contributing to this week's episode. You can follow them both on Instagram at Cameron Ormond and at Marley Dickinson. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Shakeout Podcast, and on YouTube at the Canadian Running Magazine. If you're enjoying the Shakeout Podcast, please subscribe to the show and consider leaving us a review. It helps so much. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm your host, John Gay, saying see you next time for your weekly Shakeout.